Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Princeton Review webinar. My name is Stephen. Chris Piani is also on the line. We're going to give everyone a few more minutes to call in, and then we'll get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Princeton Review. Welcome to the Princeton Review webinar, Navigating the World of Test Prep. My name is Stephen, and I'll be co-hosting today's presentation along with our resident expert, Chris Piani. Just so you know, everyone's lines are muted, so if you have questions or if there's something you'd like to share, please use the question box located in the GoToWebinar menu bar. Also, we'll do our best to get through everyone's questions, but if we're unable to answer your questions, our experts will follow up with you after the webinar. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Chris. All right, Chris, take it away.
Great. Thanks so much, Stephen. And can you hear me okay, Stephen?
Yep, can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. So yes, my name is Chris Piani. I'm the GM for New York and Connecticut at the Princeton Review. I'm sure you know who we are since you're viewing this webinar, but just to remind you of our mission, every year we help students get into their dream schools with great grades, great test scores, and great college applications. Last year, we helped over 1.5 million students, and my hope is that we can beat that number this year. I celebrated my 11-year anniversary of the Princeton Review back in September, and I eat, live, and breathe what we're going to be talking about tonight, navigating the world of test prep. I want to help allay your fears, dispel some myths, and answer your questions tonight. And I've got a ton to cover. So without further ado, our agenda, we're going to talk about some misconceptions around testing and test preparation. We're going to talk a bit about what good test prep looks like. We're going to give you a little taste of what we can achieve through proper test preparation. And finally, I will briefly talk about our motto at the Princeton Review, which is prep for you, not prep for all. If there's anything else you want us to cover, please don't hesitate to type your questions in the chat box. My colleague here, my friend and colleague Stephen, is going to be monitoring the chat box. My hope is that we'll have some time for Q&A at the end of the session, but no worries. If we can't get to your question, we will follow up with you and we'll give you information in order to do so. Okay, our contact information will pass to you so that you can follow up with us, and we'll be sure to follow up on your questions. Okay, so there's so much misinformation out there, especially now that the SAT has been redesigned, and I have heard everything from the ACT is an easier test to the SAT is the test you take if you want to get into an Ivy League school. And let me tell you, if there are any parents on this call, you parents are some of the worst offenders when it comes to spreading myths. So I'm calling you out. No longer does this have to be the case. You can go to your friends armed with great, true information after this session. In fact, go text your friends now, call them up, get them on this webinar. I promise I'm going to surprise and delight you with a ton of great information. Okay, I am not going to lecture at you for the next 45 minutes. I am promising you right now that I'm going to keep this webinar engaging and fun, and keeping true to that promise, we're going to play a little quiz. And it's all around what these tests like the SAT and the ACT, actually measure. Now, it's debatable whether or not tests like the SAT and the ACT test you on what you've learned in high school. On the one hand, both test you on algebra, grammar, reading comprehension, things like that. On the other hand, they test these content areas in a way that's less familiar to the typical high school student and much less straightforward. So, what do these tests actually measure? We're going to play a game of true and false. I want you all to think about this. I want you to shout out at your screen, type your answers in the chat box. And we're going to start with the first one. Admission tests, tests like the SAT, the ACT. Are they a measure of intelligence, true or false? What do you guys think? No, they do not measure your intelligence. So don't take your scores personally. How well you do has nothing to do with how smart you are or how creative you are. Really, these are tests that test how well you take the tests. That was a mouthful, so I'm going to repeat that. Tests like the SAT are tests that test how well you take the tests. So if you got a score and it's not what you expected or you're not happy with it, it doesn't mean you're not going to college. It probably means you just need to learn how to take the exam you're preparing for. So if you got a 1500 on the SAT or a 34 on the ACT, congratulations. You're an excellent test taker. You may also be extremely smart, but one thing we know for sure from that 1500 is that you take this test well. If you've scored below average or you scored, you're not happy with your score, it doesn't mean you're not worthy of college. It means you haven't, for whatever reason, developed the skills necessary to test well on these sorts of tests. That's good news because they're coachable. Whether you're talking about the SAT or the ACT, totally coachable. Okay, next question. Can these tests be used to award aid, true or false? Yes, absolutely true. Great scores can be used for merit awards. I am a case in point. I took the Princeton Review way back in the day. I improved my scores significantly, got a full tuition scholarship to college. While my peers were walking down the aisle, thousands of dollars in debt, I was debt-free. This is life-changing stuff. Okay, do tests like the SAT and the ACT reflect your GPA in high school? What do you guys think? Shout it out at the screen, right in the chat box. False. Not necessarily. Your GPA is much more important for admissions counselors than your test scores. And I'll lump high school transcripts in that as well. These, both the GPA and your high school transcript, reveal all the academic work that you've completed from freshman year through senior year. And your GPA and transcript answer the question, have you consistently challenged yourself academically? Have you taken regular courses, honors courses, APs, IBs? The SAT, the ACT, they don't reflect any of that. Number one thing, I've been doing this for a long time. It's the number one thing I hear from students and parents, and we hear at the Princeton Review. I don't understand. My child's a 4.0 honors student, but just a horrible SAT, ACT test taker. How is this even possible? The reality is that the SAT and ACT are developed in such a way that only a very few people get super high scores. So thus, you may be exceptionally capable. The odds are against you achieving 99% accuracy or a perfect score. Okay, next one. Do admissions tests like the SAT, ACT predict your college GPA? What do you guys think? False. We have seen no definitive research indicating that these tests are great predictors of how well you'll do in college. Do you guys know what a better predictor of college success actually is? Your GPA. That's why GPA is king, always has been, always will be. Can these tests be prepared for, SAT and ACT? Well, surprise, surprise, you came to us. We're the Princeton Review. This is our claim to fame. Of course, it's true. And let me ask you this, and this goes out to the students in the audience. If you have a huge AP test, say you're in AP history, right? Are you just going to wing it? Are you just going to rest on your laurels? Are you going to say, hey, I've been doing well all year in this AP course. I'm going to be just fine on this AP exam or AP final, right? Of course not. You're going to put the time in to ace the test, and the SAT and the ACT are no different. These test scores are still heavily relied on, so you should do some type of preparation and base it on your unique goals. Okay. Should they be prepared for? Absolutely. They can, they should be prepared for. Does the ACT, does the SAT, the ACT test what you've learned in high school? Curious to hear what you guys think. Do tests like the SAT, the ACT test what you've learned in high school? Well, this is a tricky one. Both tests claim they're rigorously aligned with Common Core standards, which means in theory, what you've learned in high school is tested. But to be sure, that remains to be seen. And for various reasons we've already discussed, and for various reasons that I'm going to cover in the next few minutes, these tests are a far cry from your typical high school exam. And so why do students struggle with tests like the ACT and the SAT? And I'm not going to read every point on this slide. I'll let you kind of digest it. But I'm going to summarize it this way. These tests can be a struggle for students because they're not consistent with how students learn and experience topics and content in high school. Think about it. When was the last time, students on this call, when was the last time you took a 3+ hour test? It's not a thing you do in high school, right? And take a look at the content, right? In high school, you're covering a chapter or chapters at a time. On the SAT, the ACT, you're covering years of information. Let's jump down to grading. Human versus machine. You know, on your math test in high school, at least your math teacher can see where you went wrong and offer you partial credit. On these tests, it's either all right, all wrong. So I want to stress what you're seeing on this slide. It's nothing to be intimidated by. With proper coaching, you can get past these differences. Okay, going to give you a little pop quiz. A lot of you are on this call because you want to get into a great college, and rightfully so, because where you go for your undergraduate degree matters. And many of you are thinking, hey, I really want to get into a highly selective college. And in order to do so, you kind of have to understand how they make their admissions decisions. So what do you guys think? Again, you could shout it out at the screen or type it in the chat box. What do you think is the single most important feature of your college application? What do you guys think? Now, interestingly, we're talking about the world of testing and test preparation, but the answer here is actually high school GPA and transcript. So for those of you who said some version of GPA transcript, you're right. GPA is king, universally, always has been, always will be. This is why you must push yourself all 4 years of school and be superlative and challenge yourself. Second most important feature if you're thinking about a highly selective institution: test scores. Now, this is certainly not universal. There's a whole movement, a test optional movement, but test scores are really important because they are the single yardstick with which colleges measure all students. So whether you're going to school in New York, in Connecticut, in California, in Texas, you will have to take this standard test, right? So for better or worse, these tests are with us. Again, the great news is totally coachable, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that there are thousands of dollars of merit scholarship money tied to these tests. So let's talk more about these tests. In addition, well, did you know, first of all, colleges have no preference whether you take the ACT or the SAT. I just want to get that out there because they really don't. They really, really don't. They will accept one or the other, or both, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. And these tests are used to grant scholarships. Almost 200 merit scholarships are tied to the ACT and the SAT. In addition, the biggest pot of financial aid available to college-bound students is need-based aid from Uncle Sam, and that's the FAFSA. You guys don't know the FAFSA, it's a whole other separate presentation, and it's very, very important that you fill that out year over year. We have resources on princetonreview.com to help you get started to fill out the FAFSA. But the second biggest pot of financial aid is actually merit-based aid from the colleges themselves based on, surprise, surprise, GPA and test scores. So lots of money at play here. Okay, the good news is there's a ton of free prep out there, right? Well, that's kind of a good thing, but it can be overwhelming. Check this out. If you do a simple Google search, free SAT prep, look at the over 6 million results that you get. So there's lots of prep out there, and there's lots of free prep out there. And that's all well and good. But I'm here tonight to talk to you a little bit more about why you should invest in test preparation. And the answer to that question, for the answer to that question, we have to think about what is good prep, right? So good prep is personalized and productive. Let me talk about that for a minute. Personalized preparation should be unique to you and your strengths and opportunities for improvement. No two people should have the same exact prep plan. Productive. You need to know where to spend your study time in order to maximize your score improvement. You have a limited amount of time to improve your scores on tests like the SAT and the ACT. You need to make sure you're using every moment to your advantage. Coaches and experts when you need them. Okay, obviously, private tutoring offers the greatest instructional benefit. It's the best in terms of flexibility and customization. It's something we offer. Great preparation should incorporate these aspects, however, in all modalities, not just private tutoring. And I'm happy to say that the Princeton Review succeeds every single year because we offer all of these characteristics in various forms and modalities. And I mentioned at the beginning how we've helped 1.5 million students last year, and over the years, we've helped literally millions of students, and we've done so with this equation. Smart strategies plus smarter teachers plus the smartest online tools equals the smartest test prep. That's a mouthful, but all kidding aside, we're with you all the way with our test preparation programs. The Princeton Review has been helping students improve standardized test scores for more than 35 years, and taking these tests requires skill. It's something you can learn, and we've got options for every budget, every schedule, from online self-paced programs to one-to-one tutoring. The two pictures you see here actually are taken from video lessons on the Princeton Review online student portal. And the student portal is filled with additional tests and drills for you to practice outside your class. These are actual teachers teaching real lessons who walk you through concepts. This is just one part of the online student portal, which you get as being part of the Princeton Review family. Very cool feature here as well. We have a Princeton Review parent and student portal that's available right on your smartphone. In real time, you can check in on practice test scores, schedule tutoring hours, contact your tutor or your teacher, see completed coursework, manage your balance payments, get additional tutoring. Parents on this call, you will love this feature because if you're kind of that big brother type in the weeds where you want to really track everything that your child is doing in a preparation program, you got it all right there on your smartphone. Okay. So let's move on to a big question that we've been seeing more and more here at the Princeton Review. And students face the question of SAT or ACT in their college journey, but in recent years, testing strategies have changed. And they're asking more and more, and I do presentations all across the country, they're asking more and more, SAT or ACT? Should I take the SAT? Should I take the ACT? Why should I do one over the other? But they're, without realizing it, they're actually asking the wrong question. The real question to ask here is, why not consider both when students have so much more to benefit by taking both? Now, let me explain this. You might be cringing at the thought of taking both an SAT and an ACT. I want to explain this in a little bit more detail. So here are the tests at a glance. You can check them out side by side. And I'm going to run through this pretty quickly here. So the ACT is exclusively multiple choice, whereas the SAT is mostly multiple choice. And really what the SAT includes that the ACT doesn't are 13 student-produced responses on the math, meaning no A through D answer choices. Content areas. There is overlap in the content. The key takeaway here is that even if they call their respective content areas something different, it's basically the same content. The difference is there are slight differences in how the content is tested in one exam versus the other. Scoring, very quickly, you can see the difference in how each test is scored. Each section on the ACT is scored on a scale of 1 through 36. Each section on the SAT is scored on a scale of 200 to 800. Moving on to timing, ACT is slightly shorter when you take into account the essay. And pure number of questions, the ACT has SAT beat by 61 questions. Let this chart not confuse you or overwhelm you. Sure, the timing, the question numbers, the content titles are a little different, but the key takeaway here is that the tests are more similar than they are different. The question is, do you think they're different enough to mean you can't succeed on both? And the answer to that is a resounding no. You can 100% take both and do well on both. And they are more similar than they ever have been in the past, especially since the redesign of the SAT. So we think you should take both. All right, let's take a look at each section. Okay, you'll see the ACT section by section breakdown. I'm not going to read through that chart. I'll just let you kind of digest it. To hit you with some quick math here, if you're looking at the approximate time per question on each subject area, on English, you've got about 36 seconds per question. Math, you got 60 seconds per question. Reading, you got 52 seconds per question. Science, you got 52 seconds per question. So you'll see that most of the sections on the ACT give you, on average, less than a minute to complete each question. Not a whole heck of a lot of time. And pacing strategy, which we teach and which I'm going to cover, hopefully if I have time, is imperative. I should also note that the total testing time of 3 hours, 35 minutes doesn't include breaks. So you're actually on site for longer than that when you include the check-ins and the breaks. Okay, let's check out the SAT. Again, I'm not going to read this word for word. You can kind of take a look at it and digest it. And for the same breakdown of average time per question on SAT reading, you've got about 75 seconds per question. Writing, you got about 48 seconds per question. Math, no calculator, you got 75 seconds per question. Math with a calculator, you got 87 seconds per question. I go over this because I want you to know you actually do have a bit more time per question on the SAT, but with good reason. You're doing more reading, even on the math, when it comes to the SAT. But one thing is certain for both of these tests. Again, they're a lot different from what you've seen in your typical high school exam. These tests are marathons. Most students have never taken a test this long, so stamina, strategy, pacing, and test-taking skills are essential. They're all things we teach in our programming. Let's take a bit of a closer look on how they're scored. The SAT has 2 sections, math and evidence-based reading and writing. You can earn a scaled score between 200 to 800 points on each section for a total of 1,600 possible points on the SAT. So yes, for you folks on the call who remember that period of time when we were on the 2400 scale, it's back to the future, to the original scoring of yesteryear. For any of you who've seen an SAT score report or even a PSAT score report, You may have seen other scores like cross-test scores and sub-scores, and more so than ever before, your score reports are providing lots of data points. Keep in mind that colleges only look at and judge you by the 200 to 800 scores. That other data is intended to help high schools assess college readiness and course advisement, but you should focus on your total and your section scores. That's what the colleges are focusing on. The ACT, you'll earn one ACT score, 1 to 36 on each section, English, math, reading, and science, and a composite ACT score, which is an average of these 4 sections. Usually when people ask about your score, they're referencing your ACT composite score. The composite score falls between 1 and 36. The national average for the ACT is about a 21. So if, for example, you scored 31 on English, 30 on math, 29 reading, 30 on science, your composite ACT score would be 30. The writing or the essay scores scored between 2 and 12 overall, with 4 subscores, all between 2 and 12. And it's important to note that just as in the SAT, your essay does not affect your subject area scores or your total score or your composite score. And I might be saying something that's slightly irreverent here, but don't worry about the SAT essay. Don't worry about the ACT essay. The general thought in college admissions is nobody cares. There's a far better indicator of how you are as a writer, and what you can achieve when you sit down and put your mind to it, and that is the personal statement, your actual college application essay. So don't sweat the essays when it comes to the SAT or the ACT. Okay. So, by the way, I'm covering a ton of information. If you are freaking out right now and taking a ton of notes, we are recording this for posterity. We can provide it to you. Don't worry about, just take this all in. Don't worry about taking a ton of notes. Okay, so why do so many schools want to see scores for both the SAT and the ACT? Taking both tests actually strengthens your college applications by giving admissions teams more information about you. I don't have it on this slide, but there is a well-known piece that appeared in the Wall Street Journal. You can look it up if you're curious. It came out in January of this year, and it highlighted that some schools review applications in teams, with each application being reviewed in 6 to 8 minutes. This is down from 12 to 15 minutes that admissions teams used to evaluate applications in the past. This is due to an increase in applicants. Even more reason to make sure you provide as much information as you possibly can. And then, of course, it's not usual that we can get information from admissions people at Ivies, but we've got a direct quote here from the Dean of Admissions at Princeton. For us, more information is always better. If students choose one or the other, that's fine because both tests have value. But if they submit both, that generally gives us a little more information. Folks, you're not going to get much more information from someone at Princeton than that. And we take that as, if they are hinting at it, if they're saying gives us a little more information, it's fine if they take one or the other, but if they submit both, it gives us more information. That's as good as you're going to get. But we've been told, offline from not just schools like Princeton, but other schools, that more and more it helps the picture. It helps broaden the picture when students are taking both and submitting both. More and more, we're talking to counselors, school counselors at high schools. This is a sample quote from a counselor from Illinois. The mantra from college admissions counselors has increasingly been to advise students to take both. Okay, so we've talked about the breakdown of the tests. We've talked a little bit about why you should consider taking both tests. Let's get into what the scores mean and how to succeed. So one of the questions we receive frequently is, what's a good score? Think about that. What do you think is a good score? It's another tricky question A good SAT or ACT score is a score that's going to help you get into your top choice school. So for some students, it's going to be an 1100. For others, it's going to be a 1360. On the ACT, for some, it might be a 25. For others, it might be a 31. Here's our best advice. Start doing your research into schools, building your school list using the great free information we have on princetonreview.com to do so. We provide you with information like the average total SAT, ACT score. A good rule of thumb is that to remove the SAT or the ACT as a barrier to entry and increase your odds of getting in, beat the average. Oh, but you and we here at the Princeton Review want to get in and get merit scholarship money to go there, right? Talked about the schools themselves offering money based on GPA and test scores. In order to do that, look at what those incoming freshmen within the 75th percentile scored on the SAT, the ACT. Look at what their GPA, right, and their test scores. Aim to beat that. Again, all of this type of information, these statistics, the average incoming SAT scores, the 75th percentile, these are things you can use the Princeton Review website at no charge to start doing your research and figuring out. Okay. So you need to be savvy in order to succeed on these tests, and becoming test savvy requires knowing what is being asked, knowing the content, and developing an understanding of the test. So check out this first example. Now I'm going to let you take a look at this. All right, check out this one. So name the quadrilateral. Bob, Sam, Kate, find X. Here it is. All right. Well-written admissions tests don't allow this type of ambiguity in questions. But since most students have had questions like this since pre-K, taking standardized tests like the SAT and ACT requires students to unlearn the habits of interpreting what a teacher actually meant by find X. Students have been conditioned over the years of schooling since pre-K, and some of the habits you've learned are not easy to unlearn. In these two examples specifically, the reason why we put this in our PowerPoint, students who answered the question this way could actually argue that they are correct. Name the quadrilateral. They did that, right? Find X. Here it is. They did that. The SAT test writers would never use these types of questions because the questions are flawed and socialized, but we are used to these types of questions. It's what we've seen. It's what we see all the time in high school. And when you see SAT questions, you may not understand why they look so complicated and weird. It's important to understand that the SAT and ACT test writers purposefully write test questions so there can only be one correct answer. This often means they're including a ton of detail, a ton of information. You might be reading on a math problem half a page of information before you even get to the question in order for the test writers to avoid ambiguity and ensure that no one can argue that there could be two possible answers to a particular question. It's important to note because it requires a different way of approaching questions on the test. Okay, here's another thing, and this is all about getting into the head of the people, the heads of the people writing these tests. Okay, people are predictable, and the test writers know this, and it plays to your disadvantage. Check this out. I'm going to throw a couple questions at you. All right. The first one I want you to answer in your head. I'll give you the question. Think of the answer in your head. You ready? Everyone, pick a number. Okay. Think of your number. Keep it in your head. All right. You got your number? Perfect. I am willing to guess that nobody has a number over 5,000. Nobody has a number over 1,000. Nobody has a number between 100 and 500. Anyone on this call choose a fraction? No? A decimal? Didn't think so. I'm willing to bet that all of you on this call, or at least most of you on this call, chose a number between 1 and 10. Exactly. I gave you a broad question, but I know that I can funnel your answer down to a small scale. Maybe you picked a two-digit number. Maybe, but I would venture that most of you listening right now picked that single-digit number from 1 to 10. And the people who make the SAT and the ACT know this. All right. So that was an easy one in your head. I'm going to ask you another set of questions out loud. I want you to shout the answer at your computer screen, okay? Or you can write it in the chat box, but I want you to play along, all right? First question is, what is the background? What is the color of the background of the slide? Okay, shout it out. Okay, what do cows drink? Shout it out. Did you shout out milk? Cows don't drink milk. Maybe baby cows do, all right? Cows drink water. But because I prepared you, I primed you for my question, I was able to get the answer that I wanted. This is something the writers of the SAT and the ACT do all the time. And guess what? They include these primed responses as trap answer choices. They're playing you. So if you struggle with these tests, it doesn't mean you're not a good test taker. It doesn't reflect on your abilities academically. All it means is that people are designing a test and it's working the way it's supposed to. But because they're using strategies to trick you, it's what makes strategies to unlock the test so powerful. Princeton Review believes that you can crack these exams. It takes skill, and we can help you build that skill. There's a language to these tests, and once you learn it, you can excel more than you thought possible. We pride ourselves on being the answer to all of life's tests, whether it's the SAT or the ACT, or even down the road, a huge part of what we do, medical school, the MCAT, we can prepare you for all of these exams. Okay, you ready for one more? Let's check it out. Yes, we know, cows produce milk, cows drink water. Okay. So test writers expect you to respond in a predictable way. Check this one out. If a store raises the price of an item by 20%, then decreases the new price by 15%, what was the percent change in the price of the item? I hope you're not thinking 5%. Those of you who are thinking or said 5%, you're wrong, you fell for the trap. The real answer is, anyone know? Anyone want to throw it into the chat box? 2%. Okay, so I can show you this with real numbers pretty easily. All right, take an item that costs $100. It's raised 20%, which is, what's 20% of 100? $20. New price is $120. Then $120 is decreased by 15%, which actually equals $18. 120 minus 18 equals $102, which is a 2% increase. Again, they know how you guys think. They know how to trap you. I want you all on this call to be careful and avoid some trap answers, some common trap answers, and common mistakes. So very quickly here, these are the common mistakes we see: answering questions too quickly, careless answers. Those two kind of go hand in hand because you're racing against the clock. You're going so fast, you make careless mistakes. Doing work in your head. Get out of your head. It's a scary place, folks. Write stuff down. You've got scrap paper. Very easy to make mistakes when you're trying to save time and doing stuff in your head. Misreading the problem. We got to be so careful because one slight word can change the entire answer. Not understanding what to do. Okay, I think you're getting the hang of this. I can tell. I want to make sure that we continue with some big picture stuff here that you can start thinking about and implementing tomorrow to see results. All right, and one big one is called, a big picture strategy is called pacing. Understanding pacing strategies helps foster stronger test taking. It's one thing that we teach, one of the things we teach at the Princeton Review. So check this out. This is a typical section on the SAT, 58 questions. And you guys, you students, you are like little bunny foo-foo. You are racing against the clock. You're freaking out with the timing, and you're going to just blow through it all and attempt 58 questions, okay? Poor little bunny foo-foos, you get 26 correct and 32 incorrect, okay? That's not a great degree of accuracy there. So that's a 26 of a raw score and translates to a 540, right? But what I am encouraging you to do, and what we encourage you to do at the Princeton Review, is be like the turtle. Slow and steady wins the race, right? Take your time, aim for accuracy, and guess what? You don't actually have to attempt every single question. So this turtle says, I'm just going to mosey on and take my time and just really focus on 38, not the 58. Just going to forget about 20 of them. Just really focus on the 38 easier to medium level questions and just take my time with those. And they get 30 correct, or the turtle gets 30 correct. You're not going to ignore the other 20. You're going to pick your favorite letter of the day. Has to be the same letter. You're not going to just guess at random. So if your favorite letter is C, you're going to go C down the line for those 20. Well, there are 4 answer choices on the SAT. So if you blindly guess and you're staying with one answer choice, your odds of getting the right answer, 1 out of 4, 20 guesses, you should, on average, get 4 of those correct if you stick with the same letter. Okay, so you've got a higher score because you slowed down on the 38. You went for accuracy over speed. You got the 580. You did letter of the day to pick up 4 more. That translates to a raw score of 34. What do you think that actual SAT score would be in this case? 610. Slow down, score more. It's the simplest advice. We teach this at the very first session, whether we're doing a tutoring session or a classroom course. Something we teach, we see score improvements almost immediately when students do this effectively. It's a big difference, okay? All right, I'm actually running a little short on time, but this ACT example shows the same thing, the same type of approach, and the differences there. Okay, 24 versus a 20, big difference there. 24 is going to open doors, moving from a 20 to a 24. Okay. You guys ready to work on some sample problems? We're going to make this fun, all right? So it's a classic question, the type of question you might see on an SAT or an ACT. If Claire is C years old and is 6 years younger than Alan, in terms of C, how old will Alan be in 3 years? And you've got your answer choices there. Variables leave far too much room for error, right? If I just threw a bunch of variables at you versus a bunch of real numbers, you're always going to do better with the real numbers. So why not replace variables with real numbers? And that's something that we teach, and it's called plugging in. So we're going to say, you know what? I don't want to make Claire C years old. I don't want to deal with your stupid variables. I want to deal with real numbers that I've been living with in the real world. So let's make Claire 10 years old. Well, if Claire's 10 years old and is 6 years younger than Alan, how old is Alan? Alan's got to be 16, right? Claire's 6 years younger, Alan's 16. Forget about this term in terms of, if you see that in the question, just cross it off. It's garbage, you don't need it, all right? And you know when you see that phrase in terms of that, you're dealing with a plugging in problem. How old will Alan be in 3 years? Well, that's pretty simple. 16 plus 3 equals 19. Circle that, that's your target answer. What are you gonna do now with your answer choices? Surprise, surprise, plug in 10. Plug in what, and it could have been any number. I chose 10 because that's easy to work with. This will work with any number, okay? But let's go with 10. Your target answer is 19, and A equals 4, B equals 7, C equals 13. Boom, D is the right answer. Plugging in, it's a beautiful thing. What we did there was, here are the steps, the basic approach to plugging in. identifying the variables, plugging in a number for the variables, working the problem, calculating, getting the target value. PO is something we teach, stands for process of elimination. You just eliminate down to the right answer. Guys, especially you math nerds, I'm a math nerd, so I'm with you here. You might have looked at that problem and been like, that seems like a convoluted way of coming to the right answer. I know the algebra, I could just do the algebra. It's about accuracy, guys. The algebraic way leaves room for error, number one. Number two, we always teach you these approaches on a relatively simple problem. But believe me, and those of you on this call who've actually seen higher level difficulty questions on a PSAT or an SAT, this gets ramped up and it gets a lot more confusing than what you've seen in the sample problem. Eliminating those variables and just dealing with real numbers, it's a beautiful thing. It will make your life easier. It will increase your accuracy. Here's another one, process of elimination, okay? I'm gonna give you a second to read this. So when you're asked about punctuation and grammar questions, there are three important rules to remember. One, rules around stop punctuation, all right? What do I mean by that? Periods, semicolons, exclamation points, question marks, and comma fanboys like for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Those can only connect to complete thoughts. All right, so keep that in mind, right? The second thing I want you to keep in mind is a period and a semicolon are the same thing. And third, if you can't cite a reason to use a comma, you don't need it. So let's work this problem, all right? And you can see that very first section, although some ESL teachers work abroad and speak the language of their host countries, is that a complete thought? No. So we definitely know you can eliminate A. There's a problem there. And with that, you can also eliminate C, because I just said, there we go, that semicolons and periods for all intents and purposes are the same. So now you're down to just B and D, and you've got in D, their host countries, right? Do you need that comma? No, there's no good reason for it. So your answer is B. Okay, so now that we've gone through the tests and their similarities and how scores work and some sample problems, let's talk a little bit more about how to improve your score. The single most important thing you can do here is figure out where you're starting, take a practice test, take one of each subject if possible. You should have a baseline of where you are so you can plan where you're going to go and you have a foundation to stand on. The biggest key to improving your score is to master the techniques test writers don't want you to know. This means learning and applying strategies like those we covered here and more, and putting them all together. So after you take those practice exams for the first time, start thinking about some target schools and scores. This is going to help guide you in that process, okay? One thing I want to come back to is this idea of prep for you, not for all. The reason why you want to invest in a solid test preparation program is that it goes above and beyond the free resources available online. And this is all about you and your uniqueness and opportunities to improve. You need something that works for you and not anybody else. We can help you with this. So better use, start with better use. We've spent a lot of time, going over the SAT and the ACT. It's one piece of the puzzle. To get into your dream school, it requires it includes three key elements: better grades, better scores, better applications. It's not one or the other. It's all three working together. So better grades, we've got something called Homework Help. You can think of that as Uber or Netflix for homework to help you crush it when it comes to your grade goals. Let me explain this in 2 seconds, or maybe 30 seconds. Imagine it's 10 o'clock at night. Imagine you're stuck on a calculus problem. You don't know what to do. You log into your Princeton Review Homework Help account. You get paired with a tutor in less than 60 seconds. It could be, it'll be a tutor in calculus in this particular scenario, but we've got representation of over 40 subjects, all the usual suspects when it comes to high school. But in this scenario, it's 10 o'clock at night, you're stuck on calculus. You get paired with a great calculus tutor, less than 60 seconds. That person helps you through that homework problem. A session could be 5 minutes, it could be 20 minutes, it could be an hour. It's flexible, it's on demand. You can get it on your smartphone, on your laptop, where you want it, when you want it. We have helped students increase full letter grades when they use this service consistently. That means going from a C to a B or a B to an A. I said it's like Netflix. It's a monthly subscription model starting at $39.99. Check it out. Go to princetonreview.com/bettergrades, and you can even just start a free trial. So we've got you covered there. Obviously, we've got academic tutoring, and that is more traditional, where we can, set up regular sessions and in a multitude of subjects. So we got you covered there. We've got you covered with better scores, and we've got a variety of test preparation options. I mentioned we do private tutoring, we do classroom courses, we do something called a self-paced course where it's fully online and it's self-guided, but still we're able to achieve a personalization because the program molds to every input, every drill you take, every homework problem you do, every practice test you take feeds the recommendation engine and prep plan for you and molds the prep plan to your unique opportunities to improve. So a host of programming choices to get you covered for the SAT and the ACT. And finally, we do offer admission coaching to help you form a great application. This is all guaranteed. So my call to action for all of you on the call today, or if you're listening to this after the fact even, you don't have to be watching this live, even if this is after the fact. My call to action to you is covered a ton of information, right? It can be overwhelming. You should schedule a 20-minute conversation with one of our test prep experts. We are going to be able to talk to you about your unique goals and how we can work together to get you to your dream school through the great program we have to offer. If you are interested in scheduling that conversation, let us know. Throw it in the chat box. You can throw it in the chat box, or better yet, you can email us or give us a call at 800-2-REVIEW, and we can get you to your next steps, and we can talk to you about the Princeton Review programming that will help get you there. If you're going to be number one, or sorry, I messed that up. If you are going to be a number, you might as well be a big one, and we want to help get you there. So with that, I blew through a ton of information, but I've got 10 minutes left, just about 10 minutes left. So I am going to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Stephen. And if there are any great questions, I'm happy to answer those at this time. Stephen, are you there?
Yeah, so thanks, Chris. That was awesome. It looks like Michelle might have a question, which I think you might have answered, but maybe just a quick repeat. What's the difference between the ACT and the SAT? It looks like she has taken both, and she's taken more SATs than her school has, but offered more. So what's the difference?
Yeah, so I covered some of the key differences between the SAT and the ACT. This was more of a question. Like I said, I've been doing this for over 10 years. When I first started, we would have to spend so much time going over all of the differences. We would have to do a ton of legwork and give students multiple practice exams and figure out which one a student would do better on versus the other. There are still students who perform better on one over the other. That's still a thing. But I really want to stress that the tests are more similar now than ever before. So I'd rather rephrase the question and really talk about how they're similar at this point, more so than the differences. The differences are in many ways semantics. We've talked about how The SAT calls a content area one thing, and the ACT calls it something else, but it's still basically the same content. So if this particular student has taken a practice exam and hasn't really noticed much of a difference, then she's not alone. She's along with a good chunk of students who will notice that more and more because they've really become much more aligned with each other than they have been in the past.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Does anyone else have any other questions? We'll give it a few minutes. Feel free to type them into the chat box at the bottom. We'll give it a few minutes, Chris, just to see if anyone has any more questions.
Wow, was I that good? No, I'm kidding. I did cover a lot of detail.
If you guys are overwhelmed too, you can always email us at questions@review.com too if you think of anything after. But we'll give it another minute if anyone has any other questions they want to type in.
And by the way, if you're somewhat reluctant, you're a little bit shy, that's my personal email address, chrispiani@review.com. I'd love to hear from you. You can email me anytime. As the GM, you can imagine of a really large market in New York City and parts of New York State and Connecticut. I have a very busy schedule, but it's my favorite thing to do. When you do send me your feedback and send me your questions, I'm happy to take your questions or at least direct you to someone on my team who can answer those questions. So just want to take some of the remaining time here to really, I don't give that email address out, just for the fun of it. I really do. We're all here to help you and to serve you, and I really want you to just take advantage of that. And certainly, if you call the 800 number, our team of advisors is there as well. So if you have a burning question, you can always feel free to just dial us directly at that number. I'm not the one manning the phones. I'm often out talking at schools. We partner with schools across the country, so I'm often out there on the road and meeting with a lot of the fine partners and administrators and counselors we work with, and talking to parents and students, and running a really large office. So with a ton of tutors and teachers and employees. So I'm not the one manning the phones necessarily, but we have a great team of advisors who are all just as excited to talk to you and help you. So I just want to encourage you also to use that number and use the resources that we have available.
Yeah, for sure. We have a lot of great resources, and you guys should definitely take advantage of them. We're here to help you. It looks like we have no more questions at the moment. So I guess we'll wrap it up.
Great.
Thank you, Chris. This was amazing. And again, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to email us, Chris, directly, or you can email questions@review.com. And again, this will be recorded, so you can find it on our webinars page. And yeah, thank you again, Chris. This was great. I hope everyone has a great night.
Thanks so much. We look forward to talking to you.
Bye, guys. Have a good night.